Hello, here we are. Let's do some Tai Chi. Let's start out with a couple warm-ups and then we'll do a whole form. This is where we're looking at the end of the form, and so we'll focus on the spin and the lotus kick. But start out with the good old bear, just turning. There's a lot of attention that we're going to pay to the hips to get all this to work. So while you're doing the bear here, really zoom into your two quads the way that one is opening while the other is closing. I often like to put my hands on the hip joints so that I can really feel the changes in there. So just back and forth, forth and back, fro and to and fro. Really getting those hip joints greased. And of course the whole rest of the body relaxed, rear crown of the head suspended, bubbling wells open to the earth, mind in the dantian, arms moving through the air as if it had the substance of water. And everything relaxing. Put your hands on the hip joints so you can really feel how as one closes, the other opens. So you really feel those changes happening in there. Another swing or two. Great. So we're going to do a couple other warm-ups. I'm, again, really focused on the hips. So I want to do one now, which you do 100% posture. Put your other leg out in front of you. Make sure you don't just keep it next to you, but actually put it out a little bit in front. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your knee and bring it towards the inside, close to the other leg, and then towards the outside, away from the other leg. Make sure you get the direction right. For some reason, people want to try to do this the opposite way. But the knee comes in and then goes out. So you're making a big circle with the leg. And what you're actually doing is warming up the hip joint. So again, if you put your hands right on that hip joint of that empty leg, as you kind of toss the leg around, feel what's going on in the hip joint. So moving the knee is just what you do to get the hip joint opening and closing. The real focus is here in the hip joint. Make sure all the weight stays in the back. The empty foot slightly ahead of you, and toss the knee to the inside, then the outside. And just do that. Don't try to be careful. You just really want to get that hip joint greased. So this is not precision, this is looseness. Okay, change sides. 100%, back foot pointed out. Empty foot out in front of you, knee goes towards the inside, close to the other leg, then towards the outside. Put your hands on the hip joint so you can really feel it. Toss the knee so the hip joint opens and closes and opens and closes. Letting that whole leg be completely loose. And just moving, letting it move as freely as you can. Any places that it binds, try to relax and let it go again and again and again and again. Okay, we're going to do hip rotations. So make sure it's the hips that are moving, not the head, while the hips stay still. So start in the back and just throw the hips around. It's a little different from what we do in the 18 therapies where we're more careful. So here, just really try to get them moving. Again, I really like putting either my hands on the hip joints in the front or on the base of the spine in the back so that you can feel the changes happening there. And throw it around. And then change and go the other way, throwing it around. Okay, so I want to look at that, this one where we're moving the knee a little bit first, because this is an awful lot like when we actually do the lotus kick. So when you're doing this knee thing, you bring the knee in and it goes to the front and it comes to the outside. And so do this slowly. This time we're under control. And notice if the knee is making a complete circle. There's a real tendency for when it comes to the front to just come straight back. So try to get the knee really making a complete circle as it does this. Really pay attention to it. That's part of why the leg needs to be a little out in front of you. If you do it right next to yourself, you run into yourself. So get it a little out in front of you. And change and do it on the other side. So get a complete circle. Watch for the tendency to come forward and then just come straight back. But really get the complete circle as you go through there. Following the path of that knee. Okay, back to the first side. Now what we're going to do is we're going to let the foot trace it on the ground too. So as you do this, draw a circle on the ground with your foot. Actually touch the ground. Don't just do something here. Actually touch the ground, keeping your weight in the back, and draw the full circle. So draw a full circle. Again, there's a tendency to get part way and then draw the foot straight back. So make sure it draws the full circle. And change sides. Same thing. Draw the full circle with the foot. Not letting it come and come back. Not waving your foot in the air. Actually letting the foot run along the ground. Okay, back to the first side. And now what I want you to do is I want you to feel the motion. Start in the hip, go out to the knee, and then move the foot. So I'm not moving the foot first. What I'm doing is starting from my hip through the knee, plays out to the foot. Start from the hip through the knee, plays out to the foot. Go ahead and let each one be distinct here so that you don't get caught with trying to get the next one started right away. Throw it. Foot goes along the ground. Throw it. Foot goes along the ground. And feel the impetus is at the beginning, and then it plays out into the foot. Impetus is at the beginning, plays out into the foot. Change sides. Impetus plays out in the foot. And let that draw that foot along the ground. Back to the first side a little bit. And I really want you to get this feeling of you put something in motion and that goes to the knee, and then that momentum, because your leg is attached to you, ends up making a circle in the leg. If my leg would come off, if I had a detachable joint in my knee, I would do this and the lower leg would fly, right? But my legs are attached happily. And so when I do this, the leg comes back in. It throws, it goes around. It throws, it goes around. You can let the foot be just off the ground or be just touching the ground. Don't try to pick it up yet. Throw it, comes back. Throw it, comes back. And to the other side. Throw it, comes back. Throw it, comes back. Again, you throw your leg, the bottom half of the leg would come off if it could, but it's attached, so then it turns into a circle. Okay, great. Oh, yeah, if I had seen Beth was holding on to something, I would have recommended doing that. So that's a good thing. So let's do a whole form. And the whole thing, we were just doing little circles and spirals with the legs. In class the other day, we looked at all of the spirals that happen in four corners. We looked at the vertical spirals as you're doing squatting down, gathering, everything is coming in and goes out. These have some of those vertical curves. Obviously, the spin and the kick feature circles and spirals pretty majorly. So let's do a whole form. And I want you to really pay attention to all of the curves, all of the circles and spirals as we go through this. And when we get to the spin and the kick, really try to get this throwing it, foot plays all the way out. Okay, from the top. And go ahead. Great. So, did you think to watch the circles and spirals while we were doing that? Tai Chi, part of what we're trying to do is always actually stay centered in the Dantian and be present while we are doing the form and the motions. Present both to the externals of what we're doing, the shapes we're making, and present to the changes we're making on the inside, your energy, the flow of all of that. And that can lead you to kind of blank out while you're doing the form, rather than using it to zoom in and focus more carefully. And so having a thing like watching for circles and spirals gives you an opportunity while you're doing the form to have something to come back to while you're doing it and you space out or you blank out. Have something to come back to. And so, either you did remember or you didn't remember, but see what you can do over this next week as you're working on it. Can you stay present with that? And here's Beth.
Well, let's work on turn, body, sweep, lotus. So there's a couple parts to this. This is a complex move, and I will not claim state of the art. I'm not wearing particularly sticky shoes, but they're also not just cotton soled, so sometimes my spin will be less elegant than others, and that's okay. You need to be able to turn around more than you need to be able to have some perfect spin. And so if you're in a situation where that's, you're on a rug, you're on gravel, you're in the grass, you're in the sand, there's a lot of opportunities to not be able to pull off a beautiful spin. So don't worry about it. The more important thing is smoothly being able to turn around. So from step back, ride the tiger, the first thing that happens is there's this winding up quality. Baton used to talk about it as being like a bear motion, where the top hand comes down and sort of slaps down as you're turning. So this quality is the very beginning of it, and what it does is it kind of cranks you around. Remember, it's all spirals, and so there's a vertical component to a spiral, and so it's got this winding up quality at the beginning. Now, we've learned this two different ways. Ben Lowe liked to have us turn and move the foot so that the foot and the arm were in the same plane. Remember, one of the names in this move is sweep. And so there's a quality of sweeping somebody off their feet. And to do that, you need to have the arm and the leg moving in the same plane. The other way we learned it was that it stays in place and you pick it up as you start to turn. So you see what I'm doing here. One, you turn here and now they're lined up and they just come the whole way. The other one, I wind it up with this foot in place and then right away I pick up that same plane. We often teach it the Ben Lowe way because I think that's a little easier to get all the parts. So go ahead and do it that way, even if I don't in this demonstration. And then once you can play around with the quality of timing that enables you to pick it up at just the right moment. So let's look at how the spin works. Let me describe it once. So I pick this up, and now I'm going to turn on the ball of my right leg, put down the heel of the left, and finish the turn on the left as I gradually shift the weight. So that wasn't particularly elegant on my part, but you get the idea, because I'm stopping to show how it works out. It looks like you need to make some monumental spin, and it may be that you just pull one off and it just, from start to finish, you do it all on one leg and just put the other one down at the very end. That's nice, that's aspirational. It's not what's most important. What's most important is a smooth spin, and you're going to transfer the weight from your right foot to your left foot. Somewhere in the middle, before you finish, you will have ended up on the left leg. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing this. I don't want you to get dizzy, and these spins, if you do them too many times in a row, it actually tends to get worse, or at least that's my experience. So we'll just go over it, and then you can look at it through, on your own and try to work that out. But at any rate, from here, let's do it together, and crank it up and go. When you finish, you want all the weight on your left leg, and let the right foot kind of release so that it ends up a little bit in front of you, so that you're in a position like this when the move ends. Make sure that this sweeping action, that the leg stays out all the way through. It will make things smoother, and that's the sweep. If you find yourself pulling it in, it's going to get in the way. So let's do it a few more times. Like I said, we'll do it a little bit. We won't do it a lot. And now really pay attention to what happens with the left leg as you're spinning on the right foot so that the leg stays extended. And crank it up and go. There, I pulled that one off pretty well. You want to end with your right foot to the corner at an angle, 30 to 45 degrees, that typical angle, so that you've got a good stable place to stand when you do the second half of it with the sweeping kick. So do it a few times. You can do it on your own timing. And then I want to talk about how to walk it if you can't spin. So if you're in a position to spin, go ahead and spin. And if not, just check it out, and then I'll talk about how to get around if you can't spin on your surface. And crank it and go. One more time. Before I talk about walking it, I want to add one more thing, which is that you need to keep sitting down. It's really tempting to pop up as you go around this spin. So you're here, and you come into a nice down place, and then you come up, and it pulls you out of the ground. So we have an image of, those swivel piano stools or office chairs. You're sitting on one of those. So you need to sit down to spin around. So one more time, letting yourself sit down and watch the world go by on your swivel stool. Now, begin and sit down. Well, I kind of fell over that time, but hey, I'm still here. I didn't fall to the ground, so it's okay. So this idea of sitting down. Now, when you can't spin on the surface or because of your shoes or whatever, the important thing is being able to walk it in a way that is smooth and leaves you just like you want to end up, with your foot at an angle. The right foot is empty and out in front of you, and you're sitting down, nice and relaxed, upright and comfortable. So I'm not going to say you have to take n number of steps, but the fewer steps that you have to take, the smoother it's going to feel. So I crank it, I start going, and do it just like I'm about to spin, and then I just put a foot down, put another foot down, put another foot down, and here we are. Now, whether you're going to spin or not, you want to make sure that the left leg, when it starts coming, you're not going to get across yourself. That's going to mess everything up. So regardless of spinning or not, make sure that right about here is as far as it's going to go, and now your whole body is turning rather than having the left leg come too far across your body. That's going to really mess things up. So let's do another walk. Make sure you start sitting down. You've just finished this move. Remember, we were holding these postures last week, and you got to sit down and walk it as smoothly as you can. Landing on the left, foot to the corner, right foot comes out just ahead, empty, resting on the ball. Shake your legs out. Now, you might find it useful as you're making this spin to not get too concerned about the spin. It's easy to get ahead of yourself and get all tangled up. So I said, sit on the piano stool and watch the world go by. That's part of being here now and not getting ahead of yourself, because it's a little bit anxiety producing. You get to this part of the form, it's like, oh God, I gotta get around, oh my God. And then you're not there for it. So take it easy. Doesn't matter if you don't pull it off just great. More important is just that you let yourself go around without getting ahead of yourself or anxious about it before it starts. Just play it however you play it and let it just play out as it plays out. And, some will be better than others. You don't have to get more than about halfway around. So if we're even just walking it, I bring this foot here, I step, I bring it around, I'm starting to change feet. I can bring my foot around again and see there's a place where my heel can come down at 180 degrees from where I just started, and then I can let it spin on the heel as I gradually shift the weight, and then I'm there. So you don't have to get yourself any further around than you're able to. As soon as that left foot wants to go down, put it down. If you're walking, you've got a few steps to get yourself there. If you're spinning, just put it down where you put it down and then let the rest of it play out as you shift the weight onto the left foot. So let's do it one more time, and then we'll take a look at the big kick and put it all together. So, from here, and go. So now you're in place for the second half. So Lee had us doing this, and there's a good reason for that. That's the shape. That's the shape you want to make. The whole thing that he was working on with us, letting it release the hip, goes to the knee, plays out into the foot and toes in particular, and makes a nice round shape and comes back in. So I want you to stand here. You've just finished the spin. You're on your left foot's pointed to an angle, and your arms are a comfortable height and a comfortable distance. You might find it useful. We both often practice this high kick, holding on to something. So if you've got a chair or anything that you want to use to help you make that kick, go ahead. But first, just stand here with your arms comfortably extended in the position and make that shape. The knee, so the thigh is going to actually rotate so that the knee goes across you to the left. And then it plays out, leave it down low right now, and it plays out into the toes. It's the same shape when you start bringing it up. It just gets more complicated. Make sure you're still making a round shape. Aspirational is this idea that you're going to hit your hands. But that's aspirational, and I'm not even sure it matters. What we're told the move is about is kick to the kidney. So you're doing this kind of a move, and that's not where my hands are. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have it here. So it's not clear that you really need to get your toes to touch your hands. More important is I don't want to turn my thigh so that the knee points to the right, so that it's not doing this when I start to bring it up, because as you can see, if I do that, that's not going to get my foot to kick him up here at his kidney. So I need to keep the foot and the knee pointing up. So that's what you're going for. That's far more important than doing something to touch your hands. So let your hands help stabilize you. And remember, you've got cross balance. So the leg you're standing on, the opposite hand will help you keep your balance. And so you can play around with that feeling, and don't worry about how high you bring your foot. I used to really, I had to touch my hands. I had to touch my hands. Must touch my hands. Okay, touched my hands. Well, that was forced. That was a lot of force. My body had a couple of glitches. I distorted a little bit. My upper body didn't stay relaxed. So I've stopped even thinking I need to do that, and instead focusing a lot more on getting the shape to come round. Now, Benlow tells us that the foot comes back in by your knee. That's also aspirational. Maybe it'll come back in by your ankle. What you don't want is this, and then just fall into the other foot. You want to keep the weight in your left and bring it around and let it come back in. Even if you're about to lose your balance, bring it in, and then you can catch your balance again before you step into the next move. Just because it's better to stay balanced. And this is big. It has to become small before you take the next step and make it big again. So go ahead and use something. I'd be holding on to a chair if it was here, but it's over there, so I'm just going to stand here like this. But go ahead and use something to help you if that's useful. And try to make the nice round shape. Knee out into the toes and back in by your other knee. Make sure the knee's pointing up throughout. So that's the basic idea. Am I forgetting anything, Lee? Right. That when you kick, it's with the outside. As I was demonstrating on Lee, because it's a kick to the kidney.
Let's face this way. Then they can see that side of your foot.
Oh, okay. It's with that side. So the idea of touching your hands with your toes, it's a nice idea. It helps keep your toes pointing up, and that's actually what you want. But make sure that's what you're thinking about when you do this, is it's not just making a circle, it's having it go out into the toes so that the toes point up and the side of the foot is the place that would have impact. I think that's the basics, right? Yeah. So let's do it low. Now you've got ideas about what we're trying to do. So sit down, hands at a comfortable distance. Don't hold them up too high. That's only going to throw everything off. Go ahead and stand here and find the right height. If I go too low, now my arms are hanging down. Come to a place where they can be pretty much parallel to the ground. And you want them about shoulder width distance apart. If you hit your hands or don't, you still want it to be left hand, right hand. You don't want to have like a diamond where it just comes up and goes at both of them together. The instructions are one hand, then the other hand. So you want to keep your hands at a comfortable distance apart. And now let's do it down on the ground. So knee, toes, back in. And notice if there's a lot of jostling going on inside. You want to try and keep the upper body as stable as possible. You don't want to have it thrown around. So that's more important than how high your foot comes. So do it again down low. And then after you've got a good feeling for the full circle, then you can let it come off the ground a little bit and see how that works. And even down low, see, I pointed my toes up so that the side of the foot would be the leading edge. So you can do it down low. Shake out your legs. This one really cranks. If you do it over and over again, it really, you really start feeling it on the leg that you're standing on. So shake them out. Ben Lowe used to just have us, we'd stand there and he'd keep saying, kick, 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 kick. And it really knocks you out. So give yourself a little break. If you want, especially if you're holding on to something, you can play with doing it on the other leg, just for fun, because sometimes you learn something by doing it on the leg you're not used to doing it with. But at any rate, shake it out and just do it a little bit more. Sitting down, getting yourself stable, and left, right. Making sure that whatever height you're settling on, it's more important to try to stay as relaxed as you can, keeping the body upright and pretty still. Let the right hand balance the weight on the left leg. It will definitely help. Notice if you're making the rotation here. So if I do this, that did not have the rotation. See how if I do this and I just pull it back in real quickly, I want it to have a wider circle that really uses the rotation in the hip joint and doesn't just fall off prematurely. The speed that you do this at, too slow is too slow, but slower is better than whipping it around. You can, as soon as you try to go too fast, the upper body gets involved and it all goes weird. So let yourself, doing it down on the ground, do it a little slowly so that you get used to that, and then you can kind of work your way up. Work your way up. Kick, kick, kick. Rest your leg. Another thing that's useful to play around with, especially if you're holding on to something, is actually grabbing a hold of your leg. You could be holding on to a chair here and grab underneath your knee and just bring it in, because the thing that enables it to come up higher is that it comes in closer. When you do it out on the ground, the leg is out here. As you start bringing it up, the knee starts coming closer to the body. And if you're going to get even in the realm of touching your hands, your knee's going to have to come quite close to the body. And then what happens is the more you bring the knee in, so I'll stand here and do this, and see how you can really feel it go out into your foot. When the knee is in close to the body like that, you can really feel how it plays out to the foot. So those are some things to play around with. let's put it all together and do it a couple times, and then we'll back up to squatting down and do the end of the form that way. So from step back, ride tiger. Wind it up. Wait, I'm on the wrong leg. There we go. I knew something was wrong. Wind it up and go. And kick. Oh, that was inelegant. Let's do it again. That was better. I want to do it one more time, or a few more times. But before we do it, I want you to observe something about the arms. This isn't something you do. It's something that will happen if you're relaxed. And that is this. See if I can pull it off this time. So the end of the spin spirals, it runs all through the body. And when you land, if your arms are relaxed, they're going to reflect it too. So it's just a little thing. You don't do it with your arms, but if you land with soft arms, you may notice a little bit of a playing out into the hands after you have landed and stopped moving. So if that happens, great, don't think that's wrong, but don't try and do it. You'll know if you're just making it happen. It's going to throw you off. It's just because if the arms are truly relaxed, the spin will run all the way out to your fingertips. So let's do it a couple more times. And maybe one of these will be a good one for me, maybe for you. Just get that feeling of the spin. And when you land, now do the legs. And again. Great. There's so much to these moves. We're kind of thinking about them, remembering all the pieces. And so Lee just remembered another one, which is that you start out, your hands are like this, they come down, and they're going to be more in this kind of a shape. And as you come around, they gradually turn to that palm down place so that when you land, they're palm down. So you can look at the hands, and we can just walk it, and see that they start out in one position, and then as you go through it, they end up out here. So they start where one hand is more relating to the elbow, and in process, they equalize and both turn palm down from being palms facing different directions. They come around and they end up. Let it be a gradual thing that just happens as you make the rotation, so that when you finish, they're already in place, palm down, even distance out. So let's just walk it once and just notice how the arms change. Okay, great. So we'll do it one more time, and then we'll put it into the end of the form. And go. Okay. Let's take it from single whip, squatting down, step forward, step back, etc. And begin. So, turn body, sweep lotus, all spirals, keep yourself connected to the ground, keep your body upright, and give it your best shot. Don't stress over it. Go ahead and walk it if that's more appropriate. Don't bring your leg up any higher than you're comfortable and able to stay relaxed, sort of, kind of. And let it come up gradually over time because it's becoming more accessible to you, not because you've watched Professor and said, I've got to do what he's doing. So there's my pitch, and we'll just keep plugging away at the end of the form.